Shedeur Sanders fell in the draft, not because he couldn't play, but because of whispers, off-field concerns, media narratives, and front office caution. Cleveland bought into those doubts just long enough to nearly miss out on a franchise-shifting player. What's happening now isn't a discovery, it's a correction. Sanders didn't suddenly become talented. He was always this good. The league just needed a reason to stop ignoring it. Finally gave Cleveland one. In doing so, he made it clear, the Browns can't afford to play scared anymore. Sanders' emergence isn't just about redemption, it's about direction. The Browns aren't just finding their quarterback, they're finding a new way to think about leadership. Talent doesn't wait for permission.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
And if Cleveland wants to move forward, it starts by trusting the players who've already earned it on the field, even if it means admitting they got it wrong on draft. Kevin Stefanski just lost control of his own team, and not in a slow, behind-the-scenes kind of way. No, this was a full-speed, top-down override. Jimmy Haslam didn't just make a personnel move. He delivered a message. Shedeur Sanders is now the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, and the person who made that decision wasn't the head coach. And that changes everything. Because this wasn't just about upgrading talent. It was about pulling the plug on hesitation, ending the excuse train, and forcing this franchise, finally, to bet on momentum instead of fear. 4 months, Shedeur Sanders sat behind Dillon Gabriel, despite Gabriel's consistent inability to spark anything that resembled a competent offense. The play was flat, the energy was lower than low, and the fanbase? They were done pretending like this was going anywhere. But even as the pressure mounted, Stefanski stayed the course. A course that was clearly sinking. And that's what made Haslam's move so loud, so final. He saw what everyone else did, that the only person not seeing it was the coach. Stefanski was supposed to be the one driving the team forward. Instead, he dug his heels in. He chose control over instinct, familiarity over flexibility. And that might have cost the Browns more than just a few games. Shedeur Sanders is more than a rookie quarterback. He's the one card Cleveland had left to play, the one shot at injecting real, sustainable energy into a franchise that's been treading water for years. And that card was sitting unused. Wasted. Not because he wasn't ready, but because leadership wasn't. Let's call it what it is. This wasn't a coaching decision. This was an intervention. Because what Stefanski did with Gabriel wasn't about development. It was about safety. Keeping things manageable. Risk-averse. Sticking to the script. But the Browns don't need safe. They need results. Urgency. Fire. And Shedeur brings all of it. The moment he stepped into the spotlight, even in limited action, everything shifted. The huddle snapped into focus. The sidelines stood up straighter. There was belief again. Something Cleveland has been desperate for. And even with all that, Stefanski still wouldn't hand him the reins. So Haslam did. That kind of move doesn't just shake the locker room. It flips the entire power dynamic. It tells everyone, from players to staff to fans, that the old way is done. That the leash on indecision is officially cut. And most of all, that Shedeur isn't a backup plan. He's the most telling part of this shift isn't just who's playing, it's why he wasn't before. Stefanski's refusal to pivot speaks to something deeper. A reluctance to relinquish control. A fear of chaos. An obsession with doing things the right way, even when the right way isn't working. And when you put a player like Shedeur Sanders into that kind of system, one of two things happens. You let him lead and adapt the system to him, or you suppress his ability and blame him when it doesn't fit. Stefanski tried the second option, and it backfired. Because Shedeur's talent is undeniable. His leadership is real. And his energy? Unmatched. There's a reason the locker room came alive when his name was finally called. Players want to play for him. Fans want to root for him. The city wants him to be the guy. And he can be the guy, but only if they stop managing him like a risk and start building around him like an... This isn't just about the next game. It's about the future of the franchise. A future that Stefanski was delaying by refusing to make the obvious move. And now that someone else made it for him, his authority is on life support. Because if Shedeur thrives, and everything suggests he will, Stefanski won't get credit. He'll get questions. Why did it take this long? Why was Gabriel starting? Why did a team with playoff-caliber pieces wait until their owner had to step in before giving their most dynamic player the start? These aren't hypotheticals. They're coming. And Stefanski has no answer that doesn't make him look like he was too stuck in his own philosophy to see what was happening right in front of him. And let's not gloss over why Shedeur fell in the draft to begin with. This wasn't about talent. It was about off-field narratives, concerns that had more to do with personality, media presence, and external noise than anything happening between the lines. Teams let that cloud their judgment. And Cleveland, to their credit, saw value in taking that swing. But what they didn't do was follow through. Not until now. The hesitancy to start Sanders from day one says everything about how leadership still puts perception above performance. But the moment you put him on the field, those perceptions disappear. Because Sanders isn't here for spectacle. He's here to compete. And he's already shown in limited reps that he belongs. So now the Browns are at a crossroads, again. But this time they've actually got something real to build around. The kind of player you don't babysit. You don't box in. You build around. The kind of player who doesn't just run plays but elevates the team, changes the culture, turns losses into chances and chances into wins. But that future only becomes reality if management and coaching finally let go of their fear. If they stop operating like they're one bad game away from retreating back to safe, predictable mediocrity. Because what Sanders brings is too valuable to treat like a week-to-week option. He's not a patch. He's the blueprint. And if they follow it, not micromanage it, not mute it, the Browns could finally become more than just a tough defense with no direction on offense. They could become a team with identity, purpose, swagger. Everything they've been missing. The challenge now is on Stefanski. Because either he aligns with the new direction and supports his quarterback like he should have from the beginning, or he becomes the next name on the long list of coaches who couldn't adjust in time. This isn't about whether Sanders is ready. Yes. It's about whether the team around him, and the leadership guiding him, is ready to admit they were wrong. Ready to adapt. Ready to get out of the way and let this thing take off. Because Shedeur's not going to wait around forever. And neither are the fans. This move was long overdue. And now that it's been made, the expectations are clear. Trust the guy, build with him, and win. Anything less is just another rerun of Cleveland's greatest hits. Talent wasted, momentum lost, and decisions delayed until it's too late. This time they can't afford to. If you've been following this quarterback chaos, hit the like button and let us know. Was Haslam right to make the call? Should Stefanski still be steering this ship? Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe. Because this isn't just a personnel change, it's a franchise on the edge of transformation. And what happens next? It'll define the Browns for years. There's no walking this one. Kevin Stefanski didn't just get overruled. He got exposed. And now, for the first time in his tenure with the Cleveland Browns, his authority doesn't just feel shaky, it feels fragile. Because when your owner, the one cutting the checks and calling the shots, steps in and makes the quarterback decision for you, it's not a suggestion. It's a public correction. This wasn't handled behind the scenes. It wasn't spun as collaboration. Jimmy Haslam didn't hint. He confirmed. Shedeur Sanders is starting, effective immediately. And with that, the Browns' identity, and Stefanski's entire grip on this team, shifted. To be clear, this wasn't some panicked reaction to a one-off game. This was the culmination of a season simmering with frustration. The Browns weren't getting blown out. They were losing winnable games. The kind of games where one big play, one spark, one different decision might have changed everything. And the quarterback position? It was the problem, not the question. Dillon Gabriel had his shot. He was given multiple opportunities to prove he could move the offense, control the game, lead the team. But what we got was a series of underwhelming performances, stale, uninspired, and flat. It wasn't just about stats. It was about the vibe. The offense felt stuck. Every snap, every drive, every red zone trip was a struggle. And as the frustration grew, Stefanski's solution was more of the same. That's where the panic really started. Because when the head coach starts doubling down on a strategy that clearly isn't working, everyone in the building feels it. Players start losing confidence. The locker room starts to fracture. Fans start tuning out. And worst of all, ownership starts asking questions. So when Haslam stepped in and announced Sanders as the starter, it wasn't just about giving the fans what they wanted. It was about saving the season from the weight of its own indecision. And here's the part that makes this so damning for Stefanski. Sanders wasn't a mystery. He wasn't some raw, undeveloped talent hidden on the depth chart. He was right there, showing flashes of exactly what this team was missing. When he got reps, the offense woke up. The energy shifted. Guys ran harder. The ball came out quicker. The crowd responded. It was night and day. So the question became less about whether Shedeur was ready and more about why Stefanski refused to admit he was. That refusal? It now looks like pride. Or fear. Or both. And it fits into a bigger pattern we've seen from Stefanski: control. Reluctance to deviate from his blueprint. An obsessive commitment to structure, even when that structure is actively stalling the team's momentum. And nowhere was that more obvious than with Shedeur Sanders. Let's rewind to the draft. This was a player who, by most metrics, had first-round talent. High football IQ. Pocket poise. Strong arm. Clear leadership traits. And yet, he slipped, not because of what he did on the field but because of off-field concerns. Translation: teams didn't know what to do with his personality. His name. His media presence. The perception. So instead of getting the backing his tape earned, Shedeur got passed over. And when Cleveland picked him up, it was immediately clear that the team had something real. The talent was there. The leadership was there. The players felt it. The fans saw it. But the coaches? They hesitated. They saw the headlines. The baggage. And instead of embracing his upside, they quarantined it. Managed it. Sat on it. Like they were afraid of what would happen if they actually let him play. And now, after all that, ownership had to step in just to give the guy a shot. That speaks volumes. Because the Browns weren't just underperforming, they were underestimating their own talent. And for a team that has cycled through quarterbacks like a carousel, that's inexcusable. Now the pressure is off Shedeur, and all on Stefanski. Because if Sanders goes out there and performs like he already has in brief flashes, if he makes plays, moves the ball, energizes the locker room and, dare we say, wins, then it becomes painfully obvious that this move should have happened weeks ago. And Stefanski doesn't get credit for it. He gets blamed for delaying it. He becomes the guy who misread the moment. The guy who held back the future. The guy who was so locked into his system that he couldn't recognize the one player who could have saved it. And that's the risk of overcoaching. Of valuing control over creativity. Because the NFL is evolving, and quarterbacks like Shedeur Sanders are what it's evolving toward. He's not your quiet, textbook game manager. He's confident. Charismatic. Unapologetically present. The kind of quarterback who walks into the room and knows it's his. And that kind of presence? It doesn't need to be micromanaged. It needs to be trusted. Now it finally is, but not by Stefanski. That fact alone changes the entire vibe around the Browns. Because if Sanders delivers, Haslam looks like a visionary. Stefanski looks like dead weight. And the conversation quickly shifts from quarterback controversy to coaching replacement watch. And let's be honest, the players see this. They're not oblivious. They know who had Shedeur's back. They know who didn't. And if Stefanski tries to reassert control now, tries to scale back the playbook, slow the tempo, or tighten the leash, it's going to read as sabotage. There's no easing into it anymore. The time for cautious experimentation is over. Shedeur's the starter. He's the guy. And if Cleveland wants to make anything out of this season, they have to go all in. Let him run the offense. Let him lead. Let him learn in real time, not from behind a clipboard. Because what this team needs is not just a quarterback. It needs a jolt. A cultural shift. Something that wakes up the locker room, the fan base, and the coaching staff all at once. And that something is already here. But only if they let him be. And for Stefanski, that's the biggest challenge yet. Not just adjusting the playbook. Adjusting his mindset. Letting go. Trusting the player instead of the process. Because if he can't do that, he won't be here much longer. Not after this. Cleveland's done waiting. The fans are fed up with being teased by talent and betrayed by execution. This move, whether it works out or not, was a signal that the organization is tired of mediocrity disguised as patience. They want progress. And they want it now. Shedeur Sanders represents that progress. And for the first time in a long time, the Browns might actually be heading in a direction that feels like it has purpose. Not because of a scheme or a coach, but because of a player who refused to shrink under pressure and finally got the chance to prove everyone wrong. Now it's up to the rest of the team to match that energy. And now here we are, finally at the place everyone saw coming except the guy who was supposed to see it first. Kevin Stefanski is standing on the sidelines, headset on, clipboard in hand, while the entire franchise shifts around him. And this time he's not in control. Not even close. This is Shedeur Sanders' team now. Let's not pretend this was some smooth bat and pass. This was a front office detour around a head coach who got too comfortable with indecision. Haslam didn't just name Sanders the starter. He declared it. No vague statements. No, we'll evaluate the position. No, competition continues in practice. Just a full-stop announcement. Shedeur's starting the next games. End of discussion. It's not just a quarterback change. It's a public power play. And if Stefanski didn't feel the heat before, he's in the fire now. Because when you get publicly overruled like this, you don't get a second shot at controlling the narrative. Your system doesn't matter anymore. Your quarterback plan is irrelevant. The guy you didn't trust is now the future of the franchise, and the owner just made that clear to everyone. And it's not like this came out of nowhere. Dillon Gabriel had every chance. He was supposed to be this safe choice, the placeholder who could manage games while the rookie learned the ropes. But what ended up happening was something far more damaging than just bad football. Nothing happened. The offense flatlined. Games slipped away. Momentum never arrived. And week after week, Stefanski stuck to the script. It wasn't just conservative. It was stubborn. He watched the team circle the drain and refused to grab the lifeline right in front of him. Because that's what Shedeur was the whole time, a lifeline. Not just because of his arm or his potential, but because of what he brought that Gabriel never could, energy. Every time Sanders touched the field, you could feel the shift. Not just in the play calling or the tempo, but in the attitude of the team. Receivers started finishing routes. The offensive line blocked a second longer. The defense came off the bench fired up. It was palpable. And yet, Stefanski still benched that. Deliberately. You can only justify that so long. Eventually, reality hits, and in this case it came down from the top floor. Because Haslam saw what was happening. He saw a young quarterback with first-round talent, unfairly dropped in the draft, lighting up the few chances he was given. He saw a team desperate for leadership. And he saw a head coach so committed to the process that he was willing to risk the season just to stay in control. That's when you step in. And Haslam's decision wasn't just a signal to the fan base, it was a signal to the locker room. That the organization isn't just aware of the situation, but willing to act on it. That talent won't be buried behind politics. That if someone earns their shot, they'll get it, even if the coach is too afraid to pull the trigger. And that's exactly what Stefanski's reluctance looked like. Fear. Fear of chaos. Fear of disruption. Fear of handing the offense over to a player who didn't fit neatly into his system. And now it's too late. Because Shedeur's not asking for a shot anymore. He's been given it officially, publicly, and with total ownership backing. And now, the pressure's shifted completely. It's not on Shedeur. He's already exceeded expectations even in limited minutes. The pressure is on the coaching staff. On the play calling. On the ability to adapt. On whether they can take the leash off, build around him, and finally play like a team trying to win now, not manage expectations. Because this isn't a rebuild. Not anymore. This is a team with talent on both sides of the ball, a fan base sick of excuses, and a quarterback who doesn't just have upside, he has impact. Right now. Not next year. Not after he learns the system. No. And that's the part that's going to haunt Stefanski. Because he had this. He could have made this move weeks ago. Could have framed it as his bold call. Could have ridden the momentum. Could have shown leadership by recognizing what the team needed, even if it didn't fit into his original plan. But he didn't. And now, when the Browns start turning things around, and if Sanders plays like we know he can, Stefanski won't be seen as the coach who unlocked it. He'll be remembered as the one who delayed it. That's a brutal spot to be in. Because when you're a coach trying to save your job, perception matters just as much as results. And right now, the perception is this. The Browns were stuck and Stefanski didn't have the guts to make a change. Ownership had to do it for him. And that's not just bad optics. That's the kind of thing that fractures trust inside the building. Players notice who believes in them. And when your coach doesn't back you, but your owner does, that doesn't just change your standing on the roster. It changes your loyalty. It shifts who the locker room listens to. And that's dangerous for any head coach trying to hold it all together. But Stefanski brought this on himself. Because Shedeur Sanders wasn't hiding. He wasn't raw. He wasn't a mystery. He was showing every sign of being ready. And the only reason he wasn't playing is because someone higher up the chain had to finally say, enough. Now that they have, the question becomes, what does Cleveland do with this moment? Because make no mistake, this is a window. A real one. Not based on hype but on substance. On a quarterback who commands the room. Who makes plays. Who brings hope back into a building that hasn't had it in years. That matters. And the Browns cannot afford to fumble this. If they commit to Sanders, not just this week but fully long-term, no hedging, they can start building something real. But that means aligning every part of the organization around him. That means Stefanski either adapts his approach fast or he gets left behind. Because you cannot play it safe with a player like Shedeur. You have to trust him. Let him lead. Let him fail, learn, grow, and because he will. He's already shown it. He's shown the poise, the energy, the leadership. And the only thing he hasn't been given yet is the full support of a coaching staff willing to throw their outdated roadmap in the trash and draw a new one around him. This is the new direction. And it's the right one. So if you're still clinging to the idea that Shedeur needs more time, or that Stefanski should be the one calling all the shots, ask yourself this. How much longer can Cleveland afford to keep losing winnable games? How many more years are you willing to waste waiting for maybe? Because this isn't maybe. This is a real quarterback with real upside and real leadership. And he's here now. There's no more waiting. No more hedging bets. No more we'll evaluate during the week. That era of indecision in Cleveland just ended with one press release. And now everyone's watching. Because what happens next with Shedeur Sanders isn't just about how he plays, it's about what this franchise chooses to become. The Browns have been here before, standing at the edge of something that could be special, and somehow finding a way to talk themselves out of it. Overthinking. Overmanaging. Overcomplicating everything until the moment passes and it's back to mediocrity as usual. But this time, they don't have that excuse. The owner just made the call. The fans are already behind it. The team is clearly ready. The only people who might not be? The ones holding the... So now it's up to the coaching staff, especially Kevin Stefanski, to stop trying to keep control and start trusting the player who's already proven he can lead. If they try to fit Sanders into the same broken mold that failed Gabriel, they'll waste him. And that won't be on him. That will be on them. This is the pivot. The choice between dragging out another transition year or embracing the quarterback who actually gives this team a future. One with a ceiling. One with swagger. One with belief. Because that's what Shedeur brings. Whether you love him or doubt him, you can't ignore that when he steps on the field, people believe. And in this league, belief is everything. Teams with less talent win because they believe. Rosters with holes overachieve because they believe. And now Cleveland finally has a player that makes everyone, teammates, fans, even ownership, believe again. So don't fumble this moment. Don't let coaching egos or fear of change ruin what could finally be a turning point. Let the kid lead. Let the team rally. Let the fans hope. Because it's not often Cleveland gets a quarterback with this kind of upside, this kind of presence, and this kind of timing. And now that he's finally been named the starter, there's no going back. You ride with Shedeur. You grow with him. And you build around too. Let us know in the comments, should Stefanski be trusted to lead this new era? Was Haslam right to override him? And how far can Shedeur take this team if they just hand him the keys and stay out of his way? Hit like if you've waited long enough for this moment. Share this if you're ready to stop settling for almost. And don't forget to subscribe, because this is the start of something big in Cleveland. Or it could be, if they don't mess it up.